One of the reasons why competent, capable, successful people experience anxiety, tiredness, or even find themselves on that repeated cycle of feeling burnt out is because of their inner drive to seek the validation of others. Now, we sometimes call that people pleasing, and people pleasing comes at a cost. You know, it might look like just somebody's being kind. It might look like somebody is incredibly confident and hugely resilient in the face of a massive to-do list, a massive workload. But all of those things at some point demand a payback. So we're going to look at that today. My name is Jilly. I'm your host for the Inner Pickle podcast, here to talk about and have all the conversations about the emotional dilemmas that we as humans experience and that really keep us stuck. We're going to talk about what it is, why it, and how it happens, and how to get unstuck. So I'm guessing, like me, you've experienced elements of this people pleasing and seeking validation from other people. It kind of looks, there's two kind of main ways we do it. The first one is to say, yes, of course. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, I'll take that on. I'm absolutely exhausted. Yes, I'll come out. Yes, no problem. Yeah, I'll look after your kids. Yeah, I'll do the driving. It's like we say yes to all these things when we actually mean no. And the other part of it is when we shut up and put up. That's quite difficult to say. It's at times when maybe you're with a friend and you've had a long week and you've gone out on a Friday night and you're thinking, oh, great, cup of tea, glass of wine, whatever your thing is. And you're really looking forward to seeing them, and then they start moaning and they start going on and on about their week, and it's making you feel drained, it's making you feel uncomfortable. They may be starting to slag someone off that whatever it is, there's a sense of deep discomfort within you, and you don't say anything. You just keep quiet because there's a fear of offending or a worry about the reaction that person might how they might respond. So what we do is we do two things. We either do this, yes, I'll do it, of course, or we just keep quiet for fear of disappointment. Now, we might look and think, well, why do we do that? What is the driving force? Because neither of those things really serve us long term. And over time, we've created what I call patterned responses or habit feels. And a habit is just something that you learnt to do a long, long time ago and normally served a purpose. It's a little bit like, when people smoke, they do it to feel cool or they might do it to feel relaxed. It's vaping though these days, isn't it, I guess? And when people please, when people somewhere along the line have learnt to, have learnt to keep the peace, have learnt to control everything by just keeping everything calm, they feel safe when other people are being nice to them. So sometimes we have to look at where this all started, and it very often starts in our early years. If we got approval from our parents when we did really well at school, if we got bullied a bit at school and we learnt to just stay below the parapet, just not be too out there, and if always scanning for trouble, and if there is you just do whatever's needed to keep the peace. And what that does is it at some point it serves a purpose. So A habit is just something that we do again and again and again. So we feel an emotion, and then we've got a response to it, a physical or emotional response to it. So, for instance, you could be in a meeting at work, and there's that's that kind of rising sense of discomfort, a little bit of anxiety, thinking your boss isn't really like somebody else more than you, or you've got to keep in his good books, and he gives you an impossible task, and you just go, yeah, okay. It's the time when someone was telling me actually about a situation that they had at home whereby she'd got 3 kids, she'd got a husband, they both worked full time, and in the evenings they had dinner quite early, and they would really enjoy kind of sitting around the table chatting. She'd get some of the stuff ready for the next day, Dad would be doing bits, and it all was kind of rounded up, kind of like completed by about 8, 8:30, 9 o'clock. And that was a time when they sat down, they watched a video or just relaxed together. And then they had this particular neighbour who would often pop around at about that time. And it had been happening for years, and she'd come on average a couple of times a week. And when this person became my client, and we were looking at the areas where she could grab some time back for rest and looking after herself. She used to love like long baths before she went to bed. But when this person came around, she wasn't able to do that sort of thing. So, excuse me. So it's like, where are you saying yes when you could be putting up a few boundaries? And when are you putting up with behaviour and experiences or pattern responses or behaviour from other people, when actually just very clearly saying something there that it would make a difference? So if we look back to where this all started, we can see that very often where we were given love or approval or kindness then becomes something we seek because it makes us feel better. If you were in, for instance, say a really shouty household, and one of the parents was saying, oh, you're the good one, you're the quiet one, you're the studious one, and that felt like a real point of contact with that caregiver or parent, you're going to continue to try to seek to get that. And so one of the driving forces that we experience as adults is how our nervous system has learnt to feel regulated. Now, it should be that we feel good from a nice walk or a beautiful conversation or some exercise or a good night's sleep and all those things. But sometimes it is just keeping the peace. It's making you feel as if someone likes you and your system goes. And that is just a habit. Remember, that habit has been formed because we're just trying to avoid feeling uncomfortable or even feeling a real sense of discomfort. So although it can sometimes look like kindness, it isn't. It's often fear or discomfort or kind of like a faulty rewiring just wrapped up in something that looks, as you feel, like really socially acceptable and soothing for your system. Now, there's consequences, as you well can imagine, from this people pleasing, this seeking the validation from other people. And those consequences can be really, really huge. I've had clients come to see me where they are really exhausted. I think I mentioned earlier, sometimes like it's the kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. It's the kind of exhaustion that if you had a good holiday, you'd feel a little bit better from, but then you'd go back to your work or your daily life and it just doesn't, you're back to square one really, really quickly. And one of the reasons for this is if people pleasing is a major part of how you function, so you get up in the morning and already your mind is thinking about what you're going to say to her or him, or what happened yesterday and how you can go back on that and maybe say something different, and you're predicting the future. In order to keep everything at a level, in order to not avoid rejection or feeling rejected. So that kind of anxiety, when it runs throughout the day, is really incredibly damaging for our nervous systems. We get quite hyper. And if it's just here and there, that doesn't really matter. You know, our bodies, our beings are built to get stressed, but for a short period, and then find the equilibrium again. So when this happens long term, it has, really big consequences for our body. So our digestion starts to go off. We might get some breathing issues. We might get some, just that, as I said, that exhaustion, that type of hypervigilance. We get coughs, we get colds, we feel just off. We can feel resentful, we can feel like a victim, and all of these things put us in that nervous system state of alert. So we're never really fully relax and repair. Now, that's at an extreme level, but further down it's just that mild sense of anxiety, that mild sense of, no, I've got to get this right, and I better go and do that because that's a new group and those mums won't like me if I don't. All this sort of kind of like faulty thinking. So that drive, the consequences that it has, I think one of the biggest ones that I see with my clients is a disconnect. That disconnect, instead of being driven by what is right for you, by how you feel, what you really want to do, there's this disconnection, and all of our driving forces, our inner compass, if you like, is on doing something else to get that external validation. And when we do that, or I should say, when my clients learn to not do that and come back to here and act from a place of loving kindness towards themselves, act from their intuition, their absolute knowing, it forms an really powerful bedrock, a strength, an energy, a sort of a dynamic life force, which many of them have not felt present to before, and other people feel that. They'll get comments like, "What happened to you?" Or, I didn't know you didn't like that. I didn't realise that was a thing. Oh, you've never said anything like that before. So the consequences are we live fully. We live the way we're meant to live. When we're living for that external validation, when all of our attention is placed outside of ourselves and not on who we are, that disconnect manifests more and more crap. It's like things are always going wrong. You never feel quite right. You can have a holiday and things go wrong on the holiday. There's always kind of trouble afoot. And that's because energetically there's a message coming out where there's that disconnect. It's like a lack of depth, a lack of connection within yourself. And one of my clients a few weeks ago put it really beautifully. She said, I'm just doing myself a disservice by not telling other people what I like and my preferences and how I am. I thought, yeah, I hadn't quite seen it like that before. But it also, in the conversation, we sort of understood that it also adds a real depth to the way that you can truly relate to other people, because you're doing it from a place of truth and honesty and this connection from yourself. So if you, throughout this chat, you've gone, yeah, I'm like that, or yeah, some bells tinkering away here. Yeah, I do that. Oh my gosh, yeah, she's got me. Then I just want you to know you're not broken, okay? It's just that what you've done is you've patterned your self-worth with the approval of others. That is just simply, in most people's cases that I work with, a survival strategy. If that is what kept you safe when you were young, if that is what, if that was your love touch points, if that's where you got kindness, if that's where you got attention, you patterned that in, and you'd have patterned it in really well. But there's a chance to change that now and start to really come back to here. So I'm going to give you a couple of ways which are really easy to work with. And the first one is to pause. Most times you will find when you are people pleasing, you want to say yes, and you feel a little bit uncomfortable. There's that, and there's that immediate reaction. So if you can get used to feeling that slight sense of discomfort and just taking a breath, just sinking into yourself, and by that I mean just grounding yourself, not acting really quickly. And if necessary, buy yourself some time. Just say, oh, I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I'll come back to you tomorrow. If you're not sure, then give yourself time. If it's not like an urgent thing to get back to, don't work to other people's deadlines. Work to a space, work towards getting yourself a space where you can pause and you can check in with what feels right for you. Okay? So the second thing is, I teach all of the people that I know, my clients and my peeps, the emotional freedom technique. It's a wonderful, wonderful technique. So sometimes when you look back and you're developing this self-awareness and you're thinking, oh yeah, I did that today. I did. I said yes when I meant no, or I didn't bring all of me or more of, I could have put more of me to the table there. Just get a sense of the feeling that brings, and just use the tapping points that you'll find on this channel, on this YouTube channel, and just simply tap the points you'll see in the diagrams and tap along with me about the feelings of when you go yes or. So those two things will really help. The other thing, which is, I think, really helpful to practice, is to make sure you don't over-explain. So if you're getting used to saying, oh no, I'm not going to do that tomorrow. I'm not going to come out for a drink tomorrow. Oh no, I'm not going to meet up with everybody. Oh no. A lot of people will start to go, if they've not been used to doing that, they'll say, oh, well, I can't do that because I've had a really long week. I had to get up at 5. Oh God, and one of the kids, she's had flu and she's been off school, so I've had to work, and I've worked late 3 nights. Yeah, my husband, he's been away at work, and my mum's not well. And so you're going to all this explaining. You don't need to do that. Okay, so get used and practice. Get in front of a mirror and just practice saying, oh no, I'm not going to do that. Maybe next week I'll come along. Or no, that's not right for me. Or could we make it another time when you call? Could we make that time a different time for the meeting? get used to very succinctly saying something and not over explaining. I think I went overboard a little bit there, but you get what I mean, okay? So if you recognise yourself in any of the things I've talked about, just remember, just pause and check in, buy yourself some time and really feel in to what's right for you. You will know. Sometimes at the beginning people say, well, I don't know. But the more you can pause, the more self-awareness you can develop about all the little pockets of times when you say yes and you mean no, or you'd like to have said no, or you've not brought all of you to the table, the more times you can just become aware of that, the more choices you will get, because you'll start to say and feel what it feels like when you start to reclaim that space of inner knowing, that space of intuition, that space of doing what's right for you. So I hope that serves you, and I will be with you in the next podcast next week.